You down? You down for an adventure? Shadow half, light half. What has Aug been talking about recently? Haven't made an Aug video. In a minute. In a second. What has Aug been talking about? That don't have an Orwellian attitude. I thought that was pretty funny. Part of what I got out of, and I didn't watch them in order, but I watched most of his latest set, which is blackboard, whiteboard, black pen, white pen. It's a balanced approach. But part of what I got out of it is the experiment of dipping oneself into materiality. Now, there is a certain sort of use of language that I understand. side of carnality, if in that state we had a choice, and all kinds of memories of what happens when you dip into this particular sort of sea. We know it can be a sort of a long plunge, lengthy, and we still make it. You have to either think it's that, or it's some sort of a trick that we were pushed into the realm somehow. Andrea said she had memory of somebody literally pushing her. Lavette said she was shot into her eye. Lauda has a similar sort of telling of how she arrived in the body. I don't have any of that. I sort of remember fading in at age like 7 or something. Like the realm faded into materiality around me. But the idea is that, like, we know that it can take a long time. And we still do it anyway, because I don't know, why not? But like with any game that we have here, with any sports structure, there are people who are really good at it. Really, really good. So you can imagine there's a similar sort of thing with spirits or beings on the outside who like playing the let's incarnate into 3D game, you know, and see who can stay the longest before it spits their ass out, or who can cause the most problems, or whatever. There are, I'm sure, all sorts of running competitions as to who's going to do what, how much confusion is going to be going on, etc. And it still boils down to the fear element, and you can take that one as far as you want. You can take it, I mean, you can essentially dare the realm to spit you out, and you do so by receding back into non-reactivity of the highest order. And this doesn't mean that you're not having body motions and so on. It means that that inner thing that hiccups and bumps around when something goes bump in the night, that thing is no longer moving. That's part of alchemy, but not everybody does that. But it's essentially, it's a dare and it's trust at the same time. It's a dare in that all of the bad things that you hear, like, you know, you could get stuck, you might completely forever lose your former identity, your soul may never meld, whatever. All these things, these are the very deep levels of fear that are possible. It's a dare that all that stuff is fine, even as it is. And it's also a trust that the higher is going to take care of you no matter what choices you make, which also flies in the face of traditional religiosity, which most of us here are not in anyway. But that's a path that few take, because few take it. It's hard to take. It's a hard path to even comprehend. Having a narrative to were shown, at the unveiling or whatever you call it, where the veils are lifted and so on, and you see all the trickery for what it is. You see basically everything, and people are given a choice. Well, what do you want to do now? He said that a group decided they were going to rule what we would call fake Earth, which is essentially the fallen version of existence, forever, or as long as possible. And that's what they decided to do, and that's what they did do. And that's what would be technically called the fallen. In a larger sense, it's just kids playing in the sandbox, but in the sense where things matter a lot and outcomes matter, it's the group that's responsible for basically causing all kinds of mischief in the realm, and also playing hide and seek, just playing hide. There's not a lot of seeking going on, but there's a lot of hiding going on. But these would be the ones that, after the knowledge was given, hopefully full knowledge, if that's possible, they decided, well, fuck it, we're just going to go back and rule over this phantom world as long as possible, by whatever means is necessary. So you have that group, and then you have the other group, which is sort of us. Which I would assume like if you're choosing a narrative way of going about your life, and that is a narrative way of going about your life, I am going to rule, like, that's a narrative, right? If you're choosing that, then the counterpart to that would be someone who doesn't narrative their life, for the most part. A narrative can be applied if they're observed from the outside, but for the most part, internally, they're not narrativing. They're not storytelling. And that would be the antithesis of the ones who simply wish to rule and so on and so forth. And it would also be, it would provide the energetic opposition. Just like in chess, you have opposition. If a king is here and there's a square in between and a pawn is here, or no, king here, square in between, king here, they're called in opposition. They're opposite each other, which also creates a balance. It's the yin-yang thing of the narratived versus the non-narratived. And I'm talking about this outside of, for the most part, the moral spectrum, because morality, again, I've talked about it many times, but morality, when removed from the rule book type of morality or biblical morality, morality is simply a feeling, and that's subjective. But this sort of thing is some sort of like universal chess game, which is being played. Nobody knows anything about grammar, I've noticed lately. There, my child. People are giving insults using bad grammar. They're giving insults about intelligence while currently using bad grammar, which is very interesting. I know there's this whole thing of the language is degraded and loaded with black magic, and every time you say something, you're saying another thing, so let's revert back into, let's just fuck up the language even more, so we reverse the black magic. And then so you have people putting 3s for E's and, you know, triangles for A's and so on and so forth. You can get creative with it. You can even just mix up all the letters of a word, make a whole paragraph, and then the brain will still interpret it for the most part correctly. Anyway. What else is Aug talking about? Well, essentially, there's the true aspect of us, what he calls Most High, what to me is simply, you know, the present. That's the most true aspect that I can see. And then there's the part that is doing and moving and putting on clothes and putting on image clothes and so on. And the second one is the one that gets scared about stuff. The first one isn't even really anything in the first place, so it's kind of hard for that part to get scared of something. The idea of scaredness, or the actual feeling of fear, is something that sits inside of that one, so or that one provides space for it. So it's these two that are constantly at war is a very stupid wording. They are in opposition to each other. Or perhaps you could say complementary. Something that's in opposition is also complementary. Just like black needs white and so on. You could say black is warring with white, or black needs white, or together they make gray. I don't know. Opposites are always complementary though, and they need each other. Just like the police need criminals and the criminals need police. But they have to pretend like they don't. They have to pretend like they hate each other. But they're really just living together, right? I mean, it's just like one big happy house. But yeah, you tend in one direction, or you tend in another, or else you do this, right? Like a sperm. Fly toward the great white thing. Fly into the sun. Okay, explode and create a baby or something. The universe is a weird place. Anyway, there's something about logic, like, well, the people that we call insane they're just using further apart corollaries. They're using weak connectives, as the Caliban would say, or the star. A connective or a logic connection does not need to be, like, for instance, you can connect a leaf with tree bark, right? That's a strong connection between those two concepts. You can connect the road with a traffic light. Very strong connection. Logical, easily proven, visually proven at least. And then you can take something that just seems very unrelated, like, for instance, the car windshield, and poop, right? Combine those two, and you have, an interesting narrative, right? But starts going on about car windshields and poop, for the most part, someone would be like scratching their head because the connective is weak. It's not something that normally is associated. And with the psychic warfare, part of the psychic warfare has involved pairing theoretical things together that seem like they should not be paired together, or even associating things that seem like they should not be associated, and doing so in a way that induces fear or confusion in the mind of the beholder. But if this person who the attack is being waged on already has a whole confluence of weak connectives just set up, then they'll see your thing that you're trying to link up and they'll just laugh because, you know. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. You can only go insane if you have left some sort of stones unturned. If you've left some theoretical possibility lattice matrix stones unturned, like you haven't gone into that at least framework possibility mentally, then it can be used against you. If you've done all of it for the most part, then no psychic warfare has any chance. And you can always fall back on, well, you know, they must know something I don't know because they're not making sense whatsoever. Because the unknown is a huge part. The unknown is the biggest part, actually. Kind of a spring day today. Springy. Yeah, it's that kind of a day. How's your day been? Peace.